last time we really took a moment to just inventorize everything that is part of our experience of work today. And that could be the frustrations, the challenges, the things that we like, that we dislike, just really putting out there the whole spectrum of how we see things in relation to our work and generally life. And of course, the idea is that we want to shift that perspective, right? We want to open up new possibilities. We want to take what feels like a challenge today and see, how does that become an opportunity? How do we see, new ways forward when we might be experiencing some feeling of stuckness, right? And that leads us to this next module, which is all about the being. The reason why this is such an important aspect of going to our being, because it's from that place, it's from that deeper inner place that we can make new choices on how do we meet the challenges that we're facing in our day-to-day lives. So unless we connect at that level, we're going to be continuing to repeat the same patterns. But once we go deeper and we can, comprehend and understand and sort of perceive what is going on and what our relationship is with these challenges, we can then choose to shift those, to change those, to redesign it, if you like, in a way that is going to serve us to go forward. And I know that this is a little bit, kind of conceptual at the moment, but I think it will become very practical once we, start unpacking it and going into a little bit more details. And I think the first thing that would be great to do is, just to put into words, what do we mean when we say the being, right? Because we do speak about that a lot, obviously. It's the core of what being at full potential is about. But, even though we've worked with this field for so many years, it's still not easy to really grasp it, and to define it in a really, and to pin it down, in a really specific way.
Your being has got uniqueness in it. The capital being of Mark, the capital being of Peter, and whoever it is, we are all unique, but we all have that essence behind our everydayness in doing. In First Nation or in indigenous wisdom and in other spiritual sources, the animation, that being in capital alphabets, is an original instruction. From the day we are born, right? That original instruction, Baum calls it somewhere in the implicate order, there is already knowing. Rupert Spira called it the I, and the I is the awareness of awareness. It's originally there. The animation is the original you or the self. And in philosophical terms, the best person, it's so hard to understand him, is Heidegger, because he's the one who points out that, all right, underneath the everyday being, in what we are experiencing, doing things, thinking, and so on, there is this, in German they call it Dasein, right? There is this business, there is this original animation, the word that you use, that is eternal.
what I think would be great to explore together, is to take one of the examples that you shared last time. You spoke about, I remember you spoke about meetings and how you experience meetings, and that they were places where, people would go and they would already have very clearly defined in their mind what they were going to say, and they had a script, and everyone had an agenda, and there was no real place for open discussion and conversation and exploration. And I think many people can relate to that experience of meetings in the work environment. And I'm just wondering, like, what would it look like if we would ignite, or if, just one person in that meeting would show up with more of their beingness.
So just imagine in a meeting, all right, someone says something that is really very one-sided, all right? This is the way, we want to achieve this. And the rest, kind of stop in their tracks and may not agree, all right? So if one or two of you yourself model, practice for yourself, and say, let's slow down, all right? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I think that he's overpowering? Or how can I get myself to participate instead of surrendering to him, or instead of giving in to him? How do I humanly, all right, try and shift the conversation, all right, to say, well, I think that's right. That's really a good way. And it is a good way. It's got to be sincere, of course. You don't say it just to and you say, however, can we also look at other options? And you invite another person who has got a strong an idea about this, and to participate. Now, because you are present at the moment, and by being present in the moment, you recognize that, it's a good time to step into the being instead of being argumentative or just withdrawing, becoming a victim. And imagine if you have a colleague who has also been, knowledge of being trained in stepping back into the one's being and be present in the moment, then you start to be able to shift the field of experience, all right, which is essentially much more collaborative, much more creative, much more humane, if you like.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, Peter. And it seems so simple when you explain it, and yet we don't see very much of it, right? And it seems not only simple, but very, very effective to get to a better place at the end of the meeting. And not only get to a better place in terms of outcomes, but to get to a better place in terms of how everyone feels about where you got there, right? Because it was, there's a more collaborative approach towards getting to where you're going. So the benefits are multiple, how you feel about it, the experience of the whole thing improves, and the actual result or output very likely improves as well. So yeah, I think it's this example makes the value of presence very, very tangible. And I think we could take many other examples where taking a moment to slow down and to check in, like you say, with the essence of who you are, which I think is a really interesting concept, which maybe we should unpack that a little bit, right? Because by slowing down, it gives you the opportunity to check in with yourself. And when you say with the essence of who you are, I guess what you're saying is that, you know, checking in with yourself and what feels right to you, you know, based on your values, based on your view of the world, you're running the information that you're picking up in that situation through your filters, through your value systems, and you're allowing your whole body to feel into it, you know. And I think the other thing is, you know, slowing down and checking with the essence of who you are. The other thing is, I think you're also giving opportunity for your deeper knowing, right? Let's call it your intuition or your wisdom or your, you know, that deeper knowing that we all have access to. You're allowing that to also voice its opinion, you know, and voice its what it has to say, right? And you can only do that when you slow down. You can only do that when you allow that voice and when you train that voice to actually speak up, right? Because it's very easy to for it to be dismissed, you know.
So here it is. All right. The inner voice, that kind of uncomfortable feeling of what has been said or about to be decided upon as a collective. I, in my own experience, have known that that is not there is another way of doing it. I wouldn't say that's not the right way, but I can see another way of doing it. If now I go back to that moment in time, in the many meetings I have, say, hang on, I'm not really comfortable with this because I feel it's only half truth. There is the other half we really need to consider a bit more in order, at least for me, and I hope, you know, it instigates some thought process in you to feel fully truthful to what decision we're going to make or conclusion we're going to make and what actions we're going to make. I wish I had done that. I had that, you know, but I gave in, right? I went with the norm. I said, no, better don't say anything because, you know, here is where all your own personal bias is. There is a fear of being ridiculed. There's a fear of not being able to express properly what you mean at the time. But when you have a practice of a safe environment, you speak freely. And that's how, you know, and when you speak truthfully, the most important, and you speak your inner voice, you let your inner voice become words, right? That's the magical thing can shift. And that magical inner voice comes because you are able to now understand that you are speaking from the animated self, the original self, that being spelled in capitalized letter. That enables you to show up in that way.
And I think this is maybe a good time to introduce, you know, one or two frameworks that can be helpful to put a little bit more structure to how we think about being, and can also be helpful reminders in those moments, because, you know, it's kind of a paradox, right? When we need the being the most, we're often so caught up, you know, emotionally in something that we're not aware that we need it, right? And it's when we're, you know, in a most relaxed state that we're more open and conscious of, the being, and the benefits of it, but we don't necessarily need it the most at that moment. So when we need it the most, we're often less readily available to it. And I think what, frameworks can do is it's easy things to sort of point to and reference in those, high intensity moments. And when we can then bring it into that specific situation, it can be the right impetus for, the kind of shifts that we're talking about. So, the maturity index, let's look at that next time. I think the 8 being attitudes, also very powerful, in terms of what are the mindsets and the attitudes that we can practice, and, these new habits that we can develop on our day-to-day. And then I think, of course, the human potential house is the other one that we're going to be introducing at some point. And the platform and the portal and all the resources that are available, that's going to come in the next couple of modules. So I think we're going to start to shift a little bit more into the practical aspects of models, frameworks, tools, things that, we can easily grab onto in those moments where we need it the most. But I think it was important to not go too quickly into, the frameworks, and to keep, the first couple modules really close to what are those experiences like, and to connect as deeply as we can to that reality that so many people are feeling today. So I think we're at that right point of shifting, and I look forward to doing that next time we speak.